It was a rare, peaceful morning for Ethan Carter, the police chief of Brookhaven, a town that usually didn't let him sit still for long. But today? Today was different. He had the whole morning off. No ringing phone, no paperwork, no emergencies, just him, a fresh cup of coffee, and the quiet hum of the neighborhood waking up around him. He leaned back on his porch chair, soaking in the crisp autumn air, the scent of dew-covered grass mixing with the rich aroma of his drink. For once, everything was calm. Then he saw them. Two men in cheap, ill-fitting uniforms walked down the street with an air of forced authority. Something about them immediately felt off. They moved too deliberately, their stiff posture more like bad actors playing security guards than actual officials. One, a wiry guy with a faint mustache that looked like it had been drawn on with a pen, clutched a clipboard as if it gave him the power of a judge. The other, shorter, stockier, with oversized sunglasses that swallowed his face, held up his phone, snapping photos of random houses like a detective gathering evidence. Ethan took a slow sip of coffee, watching. They stopped at the edge of his driveway. His unmarked police vehicle, a government-issued sedan, sat right where he had parked it the night before. The mustache guy pointed at it, said something to his partner, then, without hesitation, pulled out a bright orange sticker and slapped it on the windshield. Ethan squinted, reading the bold black letters from a distance. Violation, illegal parking. Vehicle subject to immediate removal. For a second, he just stared. Then, despite himself, he let out a short laugh. They couldn't be serious. He had lived in this neighborhood for years. The real HOA wasn't even that strict, and his driveway was his property. So who the hell were these guys? Still holding his coffee, he decided to find out. Ethan took his time descending the porch steps, his expression carefully neutral. He wasn't angry, ****, but there was something oddly fascinating about watching people who had no idea they were about to ruin their day. He approached the two men, keeping his posture relaxed, casual. "Morning, fellas," he said, tipping his coffee mug slightly. "Something wrong with my car?" The mustache guy barely spared him a glance, flipping through his clipboard like he had a mile-long list of violations to hand out. "Sir, this vehicle is in clear violation of HOA regulations and will be towed within the hour." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "In my own driveway?" The second man, ***sunglasses guy ***, crossed his arms, his oversized lenses making it impossible to see his eyes. "This is community property," he said with the confidence of a man who had never been challenged before. HOA rules override personal property when it comes to parking enforcement. Ethan almost laughed again. These guys had the kind of fake bravado that only worked on people who didn't know better. But instead of calling them out immediately, he played along. "I wasn't aware of any new regulations," he said, tilting his head. Mustache guy sighed dramatically, flipping through his papers like Ethan was the biggest inconvenience of his day. "They were recently updated. You should have received notice." Ethan sipped his coffee. "Nope. Don't recall seeing anything." Sunglasses guy scoffed. "Then you weren't paying attention. That did it. The arrogance. The sheer, unchecked arrogance ***. Ethan had dealt with criminals of all kinds, but con artists had a special way of irritating him, the unearned confidence, the absolute certainty that they were smarter than everyone else. He had to hand it to these two, they were committed. He folded his arms, leaning slightly toward them. "And you are?" "HOA compliance officers," mustache guy said smoothly, producing a cheap-looking badge holder from his pocket. Ethan didn't even need to get closer to see that it was laughably fake. The logo looked like it had been pulled from a Google search and laminated like a child's school project. Before he could say anything, a deep, furious voice cut through the air. "Karen. What the hell is going on here?" Ethan didn't even have to turn around to know what was coming. The sharp click-clack of expensive heels against pavement, the unmistakable scent of overpowering perfume, the pure, concentrated indignation that preceded her like a thunderstorm. Karen stormed onto the scene, hands on her hips, eyes already set to permanent disapproval. Ethan expected her to be furious at the two scammers. Instead, she rounded on him. "What do you think you're doing, Chief Carter?" she snapped, glaring like he was the problem here. Ethan blinked. "Excuse me?" "These men are doing their jobs," she continued, voice clipped. "And you have no right to interfere with HOA enforcement." He had seen a lot of things in his career, this was something new. He glanced at Mike Dawson, his retired detective neighbor, who had wandered outside just in time to witness the unfolding chaos. Mike leaned against the fence, arms crossed, wearing the exact expression of a man who was thoroughly enjoying the show. Ethan turned back to Karen, trying to process the sheer absurdity of what she had just said. "Karen," he started slowly, carefully, "these guys aren't HOA officers." Karen scoffed. "Oh, please, just because you're a cop doesn't mean you get to decide how the HOA enforces community guidelines." Ethan stared at her, half convinced this was some kind of elaborate prank. "Did you even check if they were real officers before backing them up?" he asked. Karen waved a dismissive hand. "That's irrelevant. Your car is in violation, and the HOA has every right to enforce the rules." She turned to Mustache Guy and Sunglasses Guy. "Do your job." Ethan blinked. "Are you serious?" Karen huffed. "Chief Carter, I don't care what you think you know. The rules apply to everyone, even you. That'll be a $500 fine for obstruction of enforcement." Mike burst out laughing. Ethan had had enough. He reached into his pocket, pulled out his badge, and flipped it open, letting the gold lettering catch the sunlight. Both Mustache Guy and Sunglasses Guy froze. Karen's face twisted into an expression of immediate regret. Ethan smiled. "Since you're so big on authority, Karen, allow me to reintroduce myself." He took a slow step forward, watching as the color drained from her face. "Ethan Carter, Chief of Police." For the first time since this started, the scammers realized exactly how badly they'd messed up. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Mustache Guy gripped his clipboard like a lifeline, and Sunglasses Guy took a half step back, as if trying to casually detach himself from the situation. Ethan let the silence stretch just long enough to watch the realization sink in. They'd scammed the wrong guy. "Well," he said, slipping his badge back into his pocket, "since we're all so concerned about rules, let's talk about the ones that actually matter. Like, say, impersonating an official, attempted fraud, and falsifying legal citations." Sunglasses Guy made a panicked noise in the back of his throat. Before he could bolt, Ethan turned toward Mike. "Feel like calling this in?" Mike grinned, already pulling out his phone. "Oh, this is gonna be fun." Karen wasn't done yet, though. "You can't just," she started, her voice sharp with desperation, but Ethan was already pulling the phony violation sticker off his windshield and holding it up for her to see. "You endorsed these guys without verifying who they were," Ethan said, shaking his head. "And now you're acting like you had nothing to do with it." Karen's jaw tightened. "The HOA has every right to enforce the rules as we see fit." Ethan's patience snapped. "Karen, these aren't your rules. These aren't even real rules. These guys just made them up, and you backed them without question. Why? Because it gave you more control? More power? Asterisk asterisk." Karen's face twisted in anger. "You don't understand the responsibility of maintaining a high-standard neighborhood. It's people like you, asterisk asterisk, thinking you're above the rules, asterisk asterisk, that create chaos." "Right," Ethan said dryly. "Because I'm the problem here." Before Karen could argue, the Real HOA board members started arriving, having been called by a few sharp-eyed residents who had overheard the commotion. Among them was Barbara Whitman, the actual HOA president, asterisk asterisk a no-nonsense woman with the demeanor of a retired drill sergeant. She took one look at the situation and her expression darkened. "What is going on here?" Barbara demanded. "Oh, good," Ethan said. "Maybe you can clear something up. Were these two," he gestured to the increasingly pale scammers, "hired by the HOA?" Barbara looked them over. Then, she turned to Karen. "Karen, who are these men?" Karen stiffened. "They're compliance officers, hired to enforce the—" "We don't hire outside compliance officers." Barbara's voice sliced through the air like a blade. Karen's face twitched. "Well, maybe not officially, but—" Asterisk asterisk not. "At all, asterisk asterisk," Barbara snapped. "We would never authorize this kind of enforcement." She pointed at the fake badge still clutched in Mustache Guy's hand. "That's not even our logo." The weight of Karen's lie was starting to crush her, but she refused to back down. "This is ridiculous," Karen spat. "If we hadn't stepped in, people like him," she jabbed a finger toward Ethan, "would keep breaking the rules without consequence." Mike let out a low whistle. "Wow. You really have no idea how deep you've dug yourself in, huh?" But Ethan wasn't done. Something still wasn't adding up. "You know what?" he said, crossing his arms. "Since we're all standing here, let's take a little look at the real HOA rules. Because I have a feeling there's more going on than just these two clowns." Barbara nodded. "Agreed. Let's go pull the records." Karen visibly tensed, but she had no way to back out now. It only took 15 minutes of reviewing the real HOA guidelines for Ethan to feel his blood pressure rise. Some of the actual rules were just as bad, if not worse, than the scam. Homeowners had to pay a fee to contest any violation, even if it was completely bogus. The HOA could tow cars for minor issues, like faded paint or excessive dust. Holiday decorations were only allowed for 48 hours. After that, daily fines. Ethan leaned back in his chair, staring at the absurd list of regulations. "These are real?" he asked, looking up at Barbara. Barbara sighed, rubbing her temples. "Some of them were implemented before I took over. Others were pushed through by Karen and her group." Ethan turned to Karen, whose arms were now crossed in defiance. "You're seriously telling me you think this is all normal?" Ethan asked. Karen lifted her chin. "This is a private community. If people don't like the rules, they shouldn't live here." Ethan exhaled slowly. "And you wonder why people hate HOAs?" Karen scoffed. "Oh, please. Without structure, there's chaos. You think these homeowners want their neighborhoods looking like a cheap strip mall?" Ethan had heard enough. He turned to Barbara. "How much control does Karen actually have?" Barbara folded her hands. "Not as much as she likes to pretend, but she's made herself the loudest voice in the room." "That ends today," Ethan said. "Because I have a feeling if we dig a little deeper, we're going to find out Karen wasn't just defending this scam, she was involved in it." Karen's face finally flashed with real fear. Mike grinned. "Oh, this just got interesting." Ethan didn't have to dig long before he found exactly what he was looking for. It started with a few suspicious payments, small at first, disguised as community upkeep expenses buried in the HOA's financial records. But the more he and Mike sifted through the files, the more the numbers stopped adding up. Thousands of dollars had been funneled into an unlisted account, one that, after a little official police digging, traced right back to Karen. The pieces clicked together fast. Karen hadn't just been enabling the scam, she'd been profiting from it. Every fraudulent fine, every bogus towing fee, every time a scared homeowner paid up without question, a cut went right into her pockets. And the best part? She thought no one would ever catch her. Ethan glanced at Mike, who let out a low whistle. Asterisk asterisk wow, asterisk asterisk she wasn't just in bed with the scammers, asterisk asterisk she was running the whole damn operation, asterisk asterisk. Ethan exhaled through his nose. And she almost got away with it. Mike smirked. Almost. Before Ethan could move forward with charges, the last person he expected to see walked into the station with a lawyer at her side. Karen. She stormed in like she owned the place, marching right up to Ethan's desk with a glare sharp enough to cut glass. "We need to talk," she snapped. Ethan leaned back, folding his arms. "Oh, this ought to be good." Karen's lawyer, some overly polished corporate guy who already looked exhausted with his client cleared his throat. "My client is here to clear up a misunderstanding." Ethan arched an eyebrow. "A misunderstanding?" Karen nodded sharply. "Yes. This entire situation has gotten out of control. You're making false accusations against the HOA, and..." Ethan cut her off with a sharp laugh. "Karen, do you ever get tired of digging the hole deeper?" Karen's lips pressed into a thin line. "Chief Carter, I don't appreciate your tone." "Oh, you're really not gonna appreciate what happens next," Ethan said, reaching into his desk drawer. He pulled out a printed copy of the financial records and slid them across the table. Karen barely glanced at them. "I don't need to see this." Ethan smirked. "Oh, but you do, because that's your name tied to an account that's been pocketing fines from fake citations. And that's before we even get to the emails." For the first time, Karen hesitated. Ethan pulled out a second folder. "You want to tell me why there are multiple correspondences between you and Greg Sullivan, the guy running your little fake compliance team? Or why you were personally approving invoices for towing companies that don't even exist?" Karen's face paled. Her lawyer sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Karen, you said..." Karen slammed her hands on the desk. "This is ridiculous." Ethan tilted his head. "So you're saying these signed documents, these bank transfers, these emails, they're all fake?" Karen's mouth opened. Then closed. Ethan leaned forward, voice calm and even. "You helped run this scam. And now, you're trying to save the people who got caught." Karen recovered fast, crossing her arms. "Greg was acting under HOA orders." Ethan blinked. "Karen, the real HOA board had no idea who he was. You authorized everything. And now you think you can just waltz in here and rewrite the facts?" Karen scoffed. "You don't have any real evidence that I personally benefited from this." Ethan chuckled. "Oh, but I do." Mike, standing by the door, grinned and held up his phone. "Turns out Greg's not that loyal." The moment he realized how screwed he was, he flipped. Karen's mask finally cracked. "What?" Ethan leaned back. "Yeah. He gave everything up, told us how you recruited him, how you offered him a percentage of the fines, how you faked the paperwork to make it look official." Karen looked at her lawyer, desperate now. "You can fix this, right?" The lawyer just exhaled sharply. "Karen, you never told me there were emails." Karen's hands curled into fists. Ethan shrugged. "You should have quit while you were ahead." For the first time since he'd met her, Karen had nothing to say. Mike smirked. Wow, I've never seen her speechless before. Karen's jaw tightened, but she knew. She had lost. Ethan grabbed the arrest warrant sitting on his desk and tapped it twice. "You want to do the honors, Mike?" Mike grinned. "Oh, I'd love to." As Mike stepped forward to place Karen under arrest, Ethan couldn't help but marvel at how beautifully this had unraveled. She'd spent years wielding power over the neighborhood like a queen ruling peasants, but now? She was just another scammer in cuffs. Karen's arrest sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. For years, she had lorded over homeowners, treating them like subjects in her personal kingdom. Now, she was being led out of the HOA office in handcuffs, her usual arrogance replaced by stunned silence. The residents who had once feared her cheered as she was loaded into the squad car. Some even took videos, capturing the moment justice finally caught up with her. Greg and his phony compliance officers didn't fare much better. With the evidence stacked against them, they had no choice but to take plea deals, spilling every last detail of their scam network. It turned out they had been running this operation in multiple states, preying on people who assumed official-looking violations were real. But thanks to Ethan, Mike, and the Real HOA board stepping up, their fraudulent empire collapsed overnight. As a final touch, Ethan and Mike decided to have a little fun when the local news crew arrived to cover the story. Before the interview, Ethan strolled over to the reporter's car and stuck a bright red violation notice on the windshield. It read, "Violation, excessive news coverage. Vehicle subject to removal unless free coffee is provided to Chief Carter." The reporter, totally unaware, noticed the paper right before the cameras rolled. "Wait, what?" He snatched it off the glass, his face twisting in horror before he read the fine print. Mike burst into laughter, and Ethan gave a completely innocent shrug. "Hey, I'm just enforcing the rules." The clip went viral, turning Ethan into an internet favorite for taking down corrupt HOA enforcers while keeping his sense of humor intact. More importantly, it brought attention to just how bad HOA abuse could get, sparking conversations across social media about power-hungry board members and scams disguised as regulations. A week later, Ethan finally got to enjoy his coffee in peace, watching the quiet neighborhood he had helped save. No fake compliance officers. No Karen looming over the HOA. Just peace and quiet. Mike strolled up, coffee in hand, and smirked. "So, thinking about joining the HOA for real?" Ethan shot him a flat look. "Absolutely not." Mike laughed. "Can't blame you." Ethan took a slow sip, letting the warmth settle. He had seen a lot of scams in his career, but this one had been personal. It made him wonder, how many other neighborhoods were dealing with their own Karens? Have you ever felt powerless against HOA, or Karen, rules? Share your experiences below, let's see who had it worse.